Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Patron Hangout number 104. Sorry, all of you guys who are in the chat room. I'm glad you're there because you're all like, I heard there was going to be a show tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time, but I've never gotten any link. And I was on the way to the swimming pool when I got you're like, where is it? I'm like, oh my God. So I had to turn the car around, go back home, set the thing up, send you out a note. But I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful I saw that in my email because I completely forgot. I forgot to set up the show. Oops. So anyway, I'm glad you're here. Linda's here and a girl named Tom is here. CJ's here. Kelly's here. Molly's here. Let's see what else is in the room. Michaela, did I say Michaela yet? Texas Redhead is here. Lila is here, at least for a while, because she's got other things to do, which, Sky Ricky is here. I'm glad the 911 call didn't do you in. That's a story for people in the chat room. And let's see who else is here. Lisa N is here. And everybody else coming in, welcome. If you'd like to be in the chat room, this is a patron-only hangout, and all my live shows, including my case shows on the weekend, are patron-only for the chat room. So if you go to the link below and you click on that, you can join Patreon for $5 a month, be in all the chat rooms, be a part of the community. And if you don't want to do that, it's okay. You get to see all my shows anyway. Every show I do is public. There's no hidden shows. And please go and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notifications, and that's how you find out about what I'm talking about. And also go to the playlist and go through those playlists, or go to the YouTube search and put in profiler Pat Brown and the case you're interested in and see if I've already done it. And so sometimes I have already done it. And people ask me, will you do this? But I'm like, yeah, I did that a year ago, but it's there for you to watch. So anyway, what's up today? All right. Someone just mentioned again, I think I mentioned it last week, but it has now taken off, this whole thing about Dennis Rader, who calls himself BTK, and he's a Wichita, Kansas serial killer who is in prison for life. And last week there was a story about they're checking into him, linking to some other crimes. Well, there's nothing like a story with not actually no facts to speak of, no links to speak of, going crazy on the internet. I mean, there are shows now and they'll have a panel on there and you'll see the whole panel going at it for an entire 2 hours, talking about something which to me is just not really news. Dennis Rader is a serial killer, and any serial killer may have had murders that were not linked to him, that were prior to the murders he got convicted for. And obviously, and even the ones he's gotten convicted for, if he wasn't convicted for 20 years, he may have other murders after the ones he got convicted for. They just may be around. How do you link people to those? How do you link somebody you know is a serial killer to other similar crimes? Well, you have to have DNA, or you have to have something, in his house, he's got to have photos of the crime scene, the girl's clothing, or things like souvenirs, something like that. And barring that, you have to have him tell you, oh yeah, there is an oak tree out on Route 219, just where it crosses over Route 23. You'll see an oak tree. And there's this little stone wall next to the oak tree. And behind the stone wall is where I buried her. And then you send the police out there and they dig it all up. And a lot of times serial killers just like to send the police on wild goose chases, which is totally fun for them. Or they say, I'll show you where it is. So they get a chance to do a field trip out of prison, maybe get a hamburger, McDonald's. And if they can point you to the spot and they dig it up and lo and behold, there's a missing person who was assumed dead, well, then that's another way to catch them. That they can tell you I did this crime is not usually proof of anything. And here's the problem. You want to make sure, well, at least the detectives should make sure, don't link them to crimes that you don't know they actually committed. Because you can do that and close a whole bunch of cases down. Well, he said he did it, so we're going to close that case down, even if the crime doesn't even look similar. In the case of Dennis Rader, They got a bunch of crimes now. They're going, oh, he could have done these. Okay. So far, zero proof. Some of them were girls that were kidnapped, and his crime so far that we know of, his MO is that he breaks into their home. He's not kidnapping them. He attacks them in their own homes, where he then can spend a lot of time with them. Now, that doesn't mean he can't do something differently. But, there are other serial killers out there over those years in those vicinities. So it could be a different serial killer. It could be one or two other serial killers. So just because he was in the general vicinity at some point doesn't mean he committed every single crime that looks like a sexual homicide. Should you look into it? Absolutely. And they are looking into this stuff with Dennis Rader. But do they have anything at this point which should have been made into news? And my opinion is no. And here he is, in case you forgot what the creep looks like. That's him. But let me just give you some example of how this goes. So now we hear the Independent, yes. BTK killer Dennis Rader is potentially linked to 5 new daughters. I'm sorry, 5 new daughters. No, 5 new murders, daughter says. Well, first of all, daughter is not an investigator. She does not have the evidence. So this thing starts annoying me right here. Dennis Rader's daughter, one of his kids, her name is Kerry Rawson. She wrote a book called Serial Killer's Daughter, popular with many people. And she says here, folks, at this point on record, we're looking at these cases here. Missing person, murdered, possibly attributed to, and I want to throw up, dad. And she mentions these different people. Well, so far, none of them have been actually linked. So I don't know what she's doing in the middle of this. Sorry. And I have some personal feelings about her. I do. She got a raw deal when she found out dad was a serial killer. That she calls him dad makes me want to throw up. I don't care if he was a good father to you. And she puts in her book all these lovely things. They took trips and camping and all that stuff. Quite frankly, if you have any good memories of this guy, fine. But he's a psychopath. He never cared about you. He still doesn't care about you. He's the man who bore you and that you were raised with. But somehow calling him dad tells me you're some kind of loving personal relationship with him, which just grosses me out. I'm sorry. And for all the murder victims that this creep tortured and murdered, if my daughter was murdered by this man, I don't want to hear a nice thing about him. I don't. And I don't want you visiting him in prison, which she just did. And this thing, it says here, so she goes to the prison. Oh, he was shocked to see me. He was in a wheelchair, but he could still give me a hug and a kiss on the cheek. It was like a reunion. Okay. Terry, you're welcome to go visit your father in prison. I just don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about him kissing and hugging. I just don't. I mean, I just think it's wrong. Sorry. I know you got a raw deal. I know you're a victim too, but somehow you made a cottage industry about being his daughter, and you're going on and on about all these crimes he's committed, you're getting involved in all this stuff and claiming that they know the police are, you're in there to help figure stuff out. And I just don't buy it. I'm sorry. He's not going to tell you anything. He doesn't. Why would he tell you anything more than anybody else? He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about you. So it says here. So let's take a look at the 5 cases. I got a little off track there. I'm sorry. Just makes me gag. So anyway, it says here, BTK serial killer Dennis Rader. And by the way, again, I don't believe he's the original BTK. The first 5, the first murder of the Otero families and Catherine Bright, I do not necessarily buy that he committed. But you have to watch my videos on that. Dennis Rader is a serial killer, no question. Who is currently serving prison time for the murders of 10 people. Is now being investigated for his alleged involvement in at least 2 unsolved murders and missing persons cases. But his daughter says there appear to be many more. Again, sorry, I don't know. The daughter is not an investigation, not a detective. I don't know what she's doing there. Brace, this is just the beginning. We will get answers for these families. No, you will not. You're the girl who got the daughter name. You are not an investigator. He's not telling you anything. You're not solving these crimes. It just drives me crazy. All right, so now let's see. Trophies from his victims has led authorities to name him as the #1 suspect in the 1976 disappearance of 6 Oklahoma. Again, I don't know why he's the #1 suspect, because he was in the area. Is that the entire reason? I don't know. Maybe they've got something else. But again, there can be more than one serial killer, and I don't know what links him to that one. And he's also been labeled as the prime suspect in the 1999 murder of Shauna Garber, a 22-year-old woman. Again, I don't know why they're naming him that. Do they have anything? They have to have something before he becomes a prime suspect. He can be a person of interest, but you go from person of interest means, well, we got to look at this guy because he was in the area, because he's killed other people. What makes him a suspect? Well, something linking him to the crime, at least enough, not just that he's a serial killer and lived around there. If now that turned out that the car they saw, let's say they saw a man pulling a girl into a car, and now they realize it looked like Dennis Rader, and the car that was seen didn't match the car of his at the time, then he becomes a prime suspect. But I just don't see anything. So far, the now 78-year-old has refused to cooperate with authorities in return for amnesty. Amnesty? Amnesty from what? What? I'm sorry, I don't even get that. Amnesty. All right. But his daughter, who said she was assisting law enforcement with some of the unsolved cases. How? Posted online a rough list of 5 cases that are possibly attributed to a father. Blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to see where any evidence is that he's linked to any of these cases that of any. I don't see any evidence at this point. Now, are they doing the right thing by looking at them? Sure, absolutely. If they can close these cases for the family, if they can tell the family we've gotten the guy who did it without faking it, yeah, that's a good thing. You want to bring these cases to closure, but with the right person. So then the question is, why is this everywhere when there's no evidence at all at this point? If there was evidence, then there'd be a great time to bring this all out. But it's just gone viral all over the internet as if this is some breaking news. Oh my God, a serial killer might be connected to some other cases. So, I don't know. Anyway, that's my irritating thing today. Oh Lord. So that's my thought on that. Okay, let's see what you have to say on this before I go on to the next thing. Pat and Kerry Rawson are going to go toe to toe in a boxing match. I'd win because I box. Again, I feel bad for her, but I just have issues about her whole becoming this almost just her. She's becoming herself a news person just on the basis of her father being a killer. And if she's going to contribute something. But I don't know what she's contributing outside of getting attention. I just don't. It just bugs me. Yeah, I am on a rant. Just irritates me, especially when she calls him dad. I lost it right there. There's things where when you know a really bad person and that bad person's attached to you, your child, your husband, your father, your mother, or whatever, keep your personal little emotional thing that you might still have for them for maybe no good reason, when they're that evil a person. Keep that to yourself. When you start going to public and you start talking about them like, yeah, that you still love them and they're still nice people when they just brutally murdered children, and stuff like that. I just think that stuff, keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself. Roxy, hi Roxy. I also remember when BTK was caught, the oldest Otero son went on the local news and said he couldn't believe that a man of Rader's size could kill his strong father. I disagree with him on that one. Anytime you have a gun, you control. And even if they have a gun, if you have the gun there first, you control. And what you do is you get somebody to control. You could, for example, you can point a gun at his head and tell the wife, bind him up, bind his hands behind his back, and I'm watching you. You better do it tight. And so you can do things like this, and there's ways to control scenes, even if you're one person. So this is the kind of thing when you look at a person like Dennis Rader, or the person I think might be involved in the actual terror crimes. Neither one of them particularly spectacular, but if you have a psychopathic mind and weapons, you can do a lot. So, but yeah, I think the son now does believe it's Dennis Rader who did that, but he didn't believe it for a long time. He had many questions for a really long time on it being him. So, but they claim there's DNA, which I'm a little confused about. So anyway, it's the end of the BTK show because I don't have anything more to say about Dennis Rader. I really don't. Yeah, this is what I kind of feel like. Daughter's riding dad's coattails for what in her mind is celebrity. Yeah, I think that's the way it comes across, and maybe that's not what's in her mind, but it doesn't sit well with me. It really just doesn't. So anyway, well, I knew this crime backwards and forwards at one point because I went out to Wichita and was doing some investigation in Wichita on that case. And I was also going to do a television show. We actually had some of that done. And I honestly can't remember now, but it doesn't matter. There's ways, even if you're a lesser person, you can control somebody under certain circumstances. So, and but a lot of times people believe it had to be two people, it had to be two brutes of people, all kinds of things people think it had to be. Thank you, Annie. You're all on my side. Well, yeah, it's just a personal feeling. I have that. I'm not going to put that on the screen, but it made me laugh. Michaela. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. I do not fawn over Kerry. You're the first person I've heard who is not fawning. Well, yeah, I'll have to say this, again, I'm also a criminal profiler, and I'm not an overly emotional person most of the time when it comes down to discussing things like this. And there's a lot of people who are victims advocates, and the victims advocates tend to be much more emotional about everything. And they love anybody who'll come out and talk about being a victim. That's the thing. And so Carrie's talking about being a victim, and she's also saying, hey, victims, I want to help you out. And so she's going to be popular among that kind of thing. I just personally don't see that she has a lot to offer. She wants to tell her story, how she couldn't believe her dad, her father was a serial killer, that she didn't see it when she was growing up because she was a dumb kid. Okay. And she wants to say how it affected her after the fact, after she found out. I have no problem with that either, because that's the part where, it just rips your life apart and rips her family apart. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with writing a book on it. I just don't see that she's out here doing investigations of her father's crimes. I think that's just nonsense. So anyway, all right, let me go. I want to go to this case, which you're going to find really interesting. This handsome fellow. There he is. He's so handsome, isn't he? All right, I'm going to take him off the screen. Okay, that good-looking dude. When I did the show on, what's his name? Last show I just did. Okay, what was it? It was memory of two days, maybe less. What happened to my content? Daniel Holtzclaw. Daniel Holtzclaw, which I just did, and it's the police officer who was charged with committing sexual assaults against women. He's in prison, and people are trying to get him out because they think he was wrongly convicted. But one of the things they said he did was that he brought women back and put them in his police vehicle, and then he came up to them, and he supposedly told them lift up their clothing and check them for drugs and things. But then he whipped it out and he forced them into oral sex. Okay, so it was sexual assault that way. It had only lasted a very short period of time, like 10 seconds, 20 seconds. And people said, well, why would he would do that under those circumstances? And there was people driving by and stuff, but no, he's right up against the car and people can't necessarily see him doing it. And if he's doing it for the cheap thrill of that moment of power and control. He's making somebody do it, but then he can stop, and later on he can be at home thinking about what he made the women do. And that's maybe when he gets off on it, literally, So, but there's a lot of people who say, well, I can't believe he'd do something like that. Well, that fellow you just saw, that handsome man, he's an anesthesiologist in Brazil. He has been arrested. You want to see what he's arrested for? His name is Giovanni Quintela Bezerra, 32-year-old, good-looking dude. I would date him. Is being investigated for raping up to 6 pregnant women he had sedated during C-section operations at 2 hospitals in Rio de Janeiro. Mind you, this is an oral sexual assault. He was forcing him into oral sodomy during the actual C-section. Well, you wonder, how can you do this? Well, I know I used to interpret for women who are giving birth for a C-section. Now, what normally will happen is they put up a shield, a cloth or whatever it is, that blocks the woman from here up. So she's lying on her back, and there's a cloth that blocks her from seeing the actual surgery on her, because a lot of times she's awake, but you don't want her watching her abdomen be cut open. So you put that thing up there, and I would stand on the head side where she was, and I would interpret. And I'd look over because I could say, I go, oh, okay, they're starting now. Yep, they're cutting you, And I would interpret what's going on to her and what the doctors were saying and everything, and I would interpret that. And so I would see the whole surgery and the baby being born, but she could not because she's behind the screen thing. He was behind the screen thing. While this was all going on, he was behind the screen. So what he would do is give them a little extra anesthesia, and then he would sexually assault them behind that screen while the doctors are working. So when you look at the police officer and you say, how could he even think he would do that? You got a guy who's committing sexual assault in the middle of a C-section. I'm going to say these guys, and I don't know how long that sexual assault went on. Again, like the Daniel Holtzclaw thing, they didn't say that he ejaculated, that it was a long blowjob. They're just saying he put that in his mouth, and then he eventually, I guess in a few seconds or whatever amount of time went by, he pulled it back out and did not ejaculate. As I say, he can go home, and that can keep him going for months. But this guy was doing the same thing to women who were lying on their backs under anesthesia or some level of anesthesia. And you could just give them a little more just so they noticed some problems with their breathing and stuff during the surgery. Like, what's going on over there? And he eventually got caught. This is the most bizarre thing. But you see, people don't think this could, what? Yes. How could that even happen? No way. See, that's the problem. We think these things can't happen. And we think no one would even try these kind of things. It's just too bizarre to believe. And you think, why would he do that? And I'm saying, I looked at that guy as a handsome man, in my opinion. And of course, people go, well, he could get sex everywhere. Probably he could. He's also a doctor, an anesthesiologist. My goodness, girls, He can have dates all over the place. Why would he do that? Because it's thrilling. That's why. For him, it's a thrill to be able to do that and get away with it. So, and just because he looks good and just because he shouldn't be desperate for sex doesn't mean they're not going to do something freaky like that. And Daniel Holtzclaw had a girlfriend. He had a girlfriend. He'd go home and have sex with her. It wasn't about sex. It's about what he could do to women, how he could victimize somebody and get this cheap thrill out of it. That's what a lot of psychopathy is about. Cheap thrills. A lot of times, for example, there are people who commit burglaries, robberies, and it's not because they're desperate for money. It's because they get a kick out of robbing and burglarizing. So, yeah. So there's yeah. Oh, he may have a prego fetish. God knows. Oh Lord. Oh, you didn't look up and see anything you shouldn't see. Hey, good Lord Almighty. Yeah, I mean, oh, Kelly's supposed to be triggering me. Am I getting triggered? He is a psychopath. Yes, he is. I call everybody a psychopath. No. Oh Lord. Oh, that's an interesting point about going back to the daughter. The daughter, by referring to him as dad, wants to share a connection with him that others don't have. Thank God. Yes. And interesting enough, it's not unsimilar to, or dissimilar. It's not similar or dissimilar to women who fall in love with serial killers and want to marry them and have sex with them and have babies with them. That same kind of thing. They want that special connection because before Dennis Rader got the label BTK and got arrested and did that whole little fake trial thing that he just admitted to everything that I already knew. So I still question how much that was because he knew it and nobody else did. Now everybody's, oh my God, now he's not the dog catcher. He's not that, he wasn't, he's just, that dumpy dude who, has this little local job there who nobody cares about. Nobody's thrilled about just because he's your father. Nobody's like, oh my God. But yes, once he became famous, maybe you don't want to give up dad because there's an excitement to it, which shouldn't be that way. And the only other thing I can say is, and I'll say this in her defense, is that when you see one side of a person, it's hard to believe. That's why people say, well, how could you sleep with this guy, to the wives? How could you sleep with this guy who's out there raping and murdering, and then you're having sex with him? Well, I didn't know he was raping and murdering. He was normal when he was in the bed with me. I didn't see that. So I didn't see the horror and then think that's what was next to me in bed. So when you don't see it as a child, if you're not seeing that, and I don't know whether she's got a distorted view of him raising her. I don't know. I mean, sometimes people have a terribly distorted view of their killer fathers or killer husbands, that she may still have those memories and want to believe that at that moment in time, my father actually had true love for me. And it was real. It wasn't this fake thing that he was doing. And we were his little pawns that he was using. And that he really had some feelings for us. Apparently, so somewhere during the trial, he just called them his social, what was the word? Social contacts. He called his family his social contacts. So I'm going to say he doesn't have any of those feelings. He's a psychopath. He's got zero feelings for them, except for as you would for your car, or some people have for their pet. Their pet is real cool and cute and all that kind of crap, but it's not the same thing as having a human-to-human real relationship. Although some people do have that with their pets, but it's, she wants to believe that. I don't have a problem with her wanting to believe that. I have a problem with her in the face of what he is and what he did to the families of other people, the brutality and the grotesqueness of it. Somehow calling him dad to the public and acting like, oh, he gave me a kiss and a hug. I just think that's inappropriate. Keep that to keep that to yourself. If you feel a need for that, keep it to yourself, because it's infuriating, and at least to me, and I'm not even one of the victims, So, but yeah, I got back on Dennis Rader again. Get me out of there. Get me away from Dennis Rader. Yes, Robert Hare's checklist is very good. It's a checklist of psychopathy, and it's very good. Basically, no empathy, only cares about himself, a pathological liar and a manipulator. And my famous statement: you're either useful or in the way to him. That's it. That's my simple version. All right, let's see. What else have I got here? All right. Oh, now one of the things I want to talk about was when we have people who we've had a bunch of cases. We've had the case of Sherry Papini, when the fake crap she did, and we had the woman who claimed she saw a baby running down the highway and she disappeared and came back and said, I had been kidnapped. Now we had this one. South Dakota woman, Renee Skogland, pleaded guilty to making a false police report after claiming she was raped in Florida. All right, now let's see what happened with this one. Let me find here we go. I actually found it. Oh, it's a miracle. Okay. So she admitted to inventing an elaborate rape story to cover up her infidelity. All right. Her infidelity. And people say, well, why would somebody do this? Well, they do it for attention. They do it to cover up. Some girls will say, guy raped. They'll come home and the parents will, well, you broke curfew. You're 2 hours late. Oh, I was being raped. Because you don't want to admit she just having sex with her boyfriend. So anyway, this woman was arrested after reporting sexual battery. She was charged with misuse of a 9/11 system, false report of a crime, and fabricating physical evidence. All right. So what happened? She reported that a male suspect put a towel over her head, shoved her in a car, and raped her while her arms and legs were tied. She told the police that a particular type of rope was used, and authorities discovered that product was only sold at the nearby Walmart store. So they went to the Walmart stores. Now here was the rope that was used in this kind of rope used in the crime. All right. This is what she claimed was used to tie her up. So they went to the Walmarts and looked at all the videos and they saw her checking out with the rope. She was buying the rope at the Walmart, which I think is pretty funny. Oh my gosh. So anyway, they recovered the video. They also they got video from multiple places that she visited during the time that she was supposed to be in the attack, right? And everything, nothing matched any of her statements. Now, let's see if she's going to get anything worth anything. So anyway, she was married at the time, you see. Mm-hmm. She fabricated the rape to get a free STD test. So basically, she had sex with somebody else and was worried she had an STD. So instead of just paying for the stupid test, I think there's places you can get them for free. You have to claim you were raped to get the STD test. And then you waste hospital time. Remember I told you about Angela and my other video about Lucy Lepke and about Munchausen syndrome by proxy? Well, she came in all the time for the attention. She was willing to go through the entire rape exam for attention. This woman wanted to get a free test. She was willing to go through all that to get a free STD test. And I guess then if her husband asked her what happened, she would say, well, I went and got a rape test because guy raped me. Okay, so let's see. What happened to her? I want to know what she's going to get. Get this one. See, now this is why I get pissed off. Again, when I say women just do not get nailed with what they should get nailed with. Skogland was sentenced to 2 years of community control, a form of house arrest, and 8 years of probation. She also owes the sheriff's office $17,000 for resources. I say put her in prison. It should be a felony. She should go to prison for at least 2 years, if not 3 or 5. For good old Sherry, I would put her in there for at least 5 years for all that nonsense she caused. And that would stop people from filing false police reports and making, and I don't mean you have to be able to prove it. I mean, this is so solidly proven. She deserves to go to prison. Community control. The heck is that? She gets a little thing around her foot and she can't go too far. So unbelievable. 100 years of jail. That might be a little bit much. Always nice to hear from you, Joe. Give her enough rope. Yeah. Oh my goodness, Lord. Yeah. Let's see. And the next one I wanted to talk about was, I want to talk about two cases where solved many, many years later. And this one is super, super famous. This is Lady of the Dunes. This is out in, let me find that Lady of the Dunes thing. And this case, people have been wondering who did this for so long. Let's see, let me find it. I've got two different cases. Hold on, I'm looking for it. Okay, there we go. All right, Lady of the Dunes. And that's the woman, Ruth Marie Terry is now closed, and her husband is the killer. He's been labeled the killer anyway. Let's see what happened. This is from Massachusetts, the oldest unidentified murder in Massachusetts. And the husband at the time has been officially named as her killer. It's now officially closed. Guy Moldavan has been identified as the man who killed Terry in 1974. He was also the prime suspect in the disappearance of another wife. Inconvenient wife. Oh, and a stepdaughter. Wow. And that was in Seattle, Washington 10 years ago. So he's what you call he's not a mass murderer, and he's not a serial killer. He is what I call a situational killer. I don't know why he killed these people when he killed them. What was he just getting fed up with them? He said, okay, I've had enough of you. Kind of like a Drew Peterson case where Drew Peterson got rid of his wives when he got annoyed with them. Or did he do it for insurance money or something like that? I call those situational killings. So it's very different than serial homicides or mass murders. Anyway, her body was found among the dunes at Race Point Road in Provincetown in July 6, 1974. The town police department initially taken over the case at the time, and that was turned over to Massachusetts State Police detectives. Identification was difficult because her hands were severed and her head was nearly decapitated. She'd been killed by blunt force trauma to the head. The woman's skull never was sent to the cemetery to be buried. It stayed in police custody. Parts of her skull were tested over the years for potential DNA matches. And newly DNA testing in 2021, part of her jaw, led them to finally identify her. And they gave her death certificate for her from Ruth Marie Terry on April 5th of 2023. After they did that, they discovered she'd been married to this guy who just before her death, either in 1973 or 1974, they were traveling after their wedding. And they stopped in Tennessee to see Terry's family. They said that after they honeymooned after the wedding for the summer of 1974, and that he came home alone from the trip, driving what was believed to be Terry's car. And at the time, wait a minute, what he indicated to them, to whom, that Terry had died, but he didn't say how she died or where she was. Terry's brother had tried to find out after her death, but Moldavan told him that he'd fought with his wife during the honeymoon and he hadn't heard from her again, so he changes his stories. And then he was married several times between 1940s and 1960s. And let's see, what about the other two? He was living in Seattle with his then wife and stepdaughter, Manzanita Mearns and Dolores Ann, and suddenly both women disappeared and he fled. They found pieces of human flesh in a septic tank. They didn't have any DNA testing, was assumed, but never confirmed that those are the remains of the missing women. They dropped the unlawful flight charge because they didn't have evidence. And then he married Terry. And then he, after her death, fled to California. Interesting. What? Wait a minute. Moldavan then had a popular radio program and a cult following. That's fascinating. Boy. Anyway, they got him. Thank God. But look how many years it took. That's what always amazes me in these situations. We're talking, okay, how many years is this now? So we're going back to 1970s. Took 50 years to get the DNA to be able to prove anything. So for 50 years, he killed off 3 women and was having a jolly time. And now that he's older, shall we say, older than me even, oh well, you know, I don't know. The problem is a lot of times they know who did it. Probably all these police people knew that he killed all 3 women, but they couldn't prove it. So then he just carries on, which is pretty sad, because sometimes when you meet a person like that and he's not been, you know, the killing has happened and you don't even really hear much about it, you assume that this person couldn't have done it, because if he had done it, he would have been arrested, but didn't happen. Now, this other one I wanted to bring out, which I thought was really interesting. This woman here, her name is Vickie Lynn Belk. She lives probably about 15 minutes from me, or she lived about 15 minutes from my house. And she was found dead in 1979. Now, I find this one really interesting because it wasn't a husband, wasn't a boyfriend. So let me see here. Let me find it. Okay. All right. So she was found dead of a gunshot wound in 1979 after she didn't return home to her Suitland apartment in Suitland, Maryland. All right. So what happened here? She was found, she didn't return home. She was found dead of a gunshot wound on August 29th, 1979 in a wooded area in Bryan's Road. She was reported missing by her boyfriend a day earlier. Now, you see, I don't know what happened to boyfriend at the time, because if you remember with the Rachel Morin case up there in Bel Air, Maryland, the woman was found brutally murdered on the Mom-Pa trail. Her boyfriend, people looked at him and went, you know, they had a fairly recent relationship. He had a kind of a sketchy background, shall we say, with domestic charges and some violence. And it's like, probably that dude, but it wasn't, because DNA matched not him. Okay. So this woman, her boyfriend, he probably got taken in and interrogated heavily, unless he had a great alibi. Anyway, it says here, the case eventually went cold, but investigators continued to pursue leads and re-examine evidence as technology advanced. Finally, a DNA test conducted in 2022 produced a match. And they arrested Andre Taylor. I swear to God, I know that name, and I don't know why I know that name. Maybe it's just a very common name, but there's another case that I'm investigating in Washington, D.C. I swear Andre Taylor is linked to that, and I'm going to have to go through all my notes. They arrested Andre Taylor, age 62, of Washington, D.C. After they determined his DNA matched that found on Belk's clothing. Taylor, who was 18 at the time of the murder, lived less than 4 miles from where her body was found. And it says here, they began investigating his background and learned that he was a previously convicted violent offender in Washington, D.C. And it showed that he lived in the area that she was killed. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So the DNA matches a guy in D.C., and she lives in Maryland. And somebody could say, well, you know, how does this guy, you know, why are you saying this guy did it just because his DNA is there? Well, it turns out he did live near there. So now it gets closer together. So it's not just the DNA, it is he's in the area and he has a violent history as well. Also, they said there was no evidence Taylor and Belk knew each other, which is interesting. They said that now look what he's indicted on: first-degree murder and first-degree rape and second-degree rape. Her body was found by a teenager riding a bike. And let's see. What's interesting to me is this. That was a sexual homicide. Rape and murder by an 18-year-old. Now, you got everybody looking to see what else Dennis Rader has done. I want to know what this guy has done. He raped and murdered a girl when he was 18. Now he's 62. I'm going to say, let's look around a wee bit more and see if Andre Taylor did something else, because that's a sexual homicide, which makes him a suspected serial killer, because men who rape and murder are serial killers. And they don't just do it once. So what else has Andre done? But he's out there 62 years old, living his own life. So obviously he's never been caught for another sexual homicide. But I'm going to say he probably committed one or two or three. I'd like to know what else. And so this will be interesting to see. And I swear to God, Andre Taylor, there's a woman in D.C. who was strangled in her home. And somehow, I just know I've gone through a list of people that had some connection to her. And that name just rings a bell. Maybe it's a different Andre, but there was an Andre. So I'm going to have to go back and check. Because who knows? He could pop up to be the guy. Be interesting. But goes to show you how long a serial killer can just live out in the community. And you're sitting there going, well, there's no serial killers in Maryland or D.C. What about Andre Taylor? He was one, but you didn't know he was living down the street. And who knows, how there might be another dead girl over here and a dead woman over there. If his DNA wasn't left on those scenes, there'll be just no way of knowing. So, but it could be him. Oh, I don't. The second degree rape, first degree, and second degree. I'm not a lawyer, so I always forget what the heck each one of these things means. They tend to like stack up these charges, and just in case one doesn't stick, they got another one. Let's say. Oh. Why marry someone if you're planning to kill them on the honeymoon? Well, he probably wasn't. But you see, you have a kind of person, I say situational crime. Maybe has a very violent temper. Maybe he gets real annoyed when you don't do what he wants you to do. And he was real nice to you before you got married. And once you got married, she said no. How dare she? That kind of thing, It's hard to say. I mean, when you have a psychopath, it's really hard to say. And again, I'm going to call him a psychopath because I just don't think he murdered 3 women and chopped them up and stick them in barrels and stuff, unless that's what you are, in which case you marry people, but not because you're in love with them. People always think, oh, well, he married her and he brought her flowers. He must love her. No, they don't know how to love anybody. It's just, that's all a farce. Now let's see what I want to do here. Wanted to talk about this one. This is Jenny Fagan. All right. 35 years old, arrested for drug and gun-related charges. And I just want to bring this one up. I want to bring two cases up in a row because talk about the effect of drugs and the things that they do when they have these issues. Let's see, where is it? Hold on. Come back. Oh, here we go. Okay. This is the suspect. Now, this is Delaware State Police. They found this woman. Okay, let me read this how it works. 2 suspects in Delaware arrested for drug-related charges after one was observed in the driver's seat of an idling car and not fully conscious. That was Jenny there. And she was found with another guy named Antonio Malloy. Delaware State troopers found the suspects in an idling blue Dodge Caravan in Dover around 8:30 a.m. They noticed that the driver, who was identified as Fagan, was slumped over with a needle in her arm. So, now was she driving when she put the needle in her arm? Did they pull over so she could put the needle in her arm? Now, we're talking about when did this happen? Let's see what. I guess this was in August. So, I mean, did you need air conditioning? That's why the car was on. The troopers found the Caravan parked and running and contacted driver Jenny Fagan. Fagan was not fully conscious, had crack cocaine on her seat. Fagan, who had 4 active warrants for her arrest, exited the car to receive medical treatment. Malloy, a passenger, also left the car while police investigated. What did they find in the car? 45 prescription pills, more than 33 grams of cocaine, nearly 7 grams of methamphetamine, and just over 3 grams of crack cocaine. They also found 3 wax bags filled with heroin, handgun rounds, and a loaded handgun that had been reported stolen by the Camden Police Department last month. Malloy was charged with possession of controlled substances, possession with intent to deliver a controlled substance, she's a drug deal, and possession of drug paraphernalia. Fagan was charged with possession of controlled substances, DUI, carrying a concealed firearm, and receiving a stolen firearm. She's also charged with possession of a firearm while under the influence. So they've been booked. Now, don't you wonder how long they're going to be in? Now, we're talking, this kind of thing used to put people in prison for good 10 years. And somehow that doesn't seem to be happening. They just keep coming in and out and in and out, even though they have illegal handguns. They're obviously drug dealers and they're drug users. These people don't need to be on the street, but somehow they probably will be. So let's go to this case. This poor little girl. And she, unfortunately, that poor little girl was the daughter of this piece of crap. And Adam Montgomery, and nothing like a little teardrop coming out of your eye, dude. Okay, I know your tats. All right, so the old tat eardrop, eye drop, that's kind of a clue. But anyway, let me tell you about this piece of garbage. This poor little girl got stuck with him. Hold on. Okay, her name is Harmony Montgomery. And her murder is revealed in an unsealed affidavit. All right, this poor little girl. Harmony Montgomery's father repeatedly punched her in the face, killing her, then moved her corpse around for months to hide his crime. You know, there are easier things to do with a corpse than what this guy did. But you got to wonder about people. And this includes the mother, by the way. Adam Montgomery, 33 years old, allegedly hit his daughter in the face and the head at least 3 times over the course of a few minutes. I think I really hurt her this time. I think I did something, he said to blurted to his estranged wife, Kayla. Harmony, who was seated in the back of the car, started making a moaning noise for about 5 minutes, and then she stopped. The couple was living in a borrowed car at the time. I wonder how borrowed it was. Is that a euphemism for stolen? I borrowed your car. They were living in a borrowed car with their 2 boys in Manchester, New Hampshire. They did not seek medical attention for Harmony after they realized she was dead. So the mother's a piece of crap too. So they got these 2 people. He beats their daughter to death, and she's like, "All right, well, you know, we're not going to report this." All right. He was charged with second degree murder, abuse of a corpse, witness tampering, and falsifying evidence. Although her body was never found. You wonder, how was her body never found? I guess he did move it around pretty well, but listen to this. All right. After the couple's car broke down, the one they borrowed, and he stuffed her body into a duffel bag. Next 3 months, the drug-addled father. Drugs do not have any victim. Victimless crime, drugs. If I hear that one more time, somebody tells me drugs are victimless crime, do not get too near. There's no such thing as victimless crimes when it comes down to drugs. And that includes, I hate to say, guys, people buying marijuana, because that is what's supporting the Chinese and the Mexican cartels and destroying their companies along with ours. Don't give me all your, weed is not a big deal. Okay. Let's legalize it, but now that they've legalized it, there's more illegal grow than ever because people don't want to pay the price of the legal crap. But you can still walk around with the illegal crap, and now you can't get charged with it. All right. That was my side soapbox. All right. Drug-addled father repeatedly moved her remains, including to a ceiling vent, a cooler, and a restaurant freezer. They moved into a homeless shelter and brought her body with them. Adam Montgomery stuffed his daughter's body into the ceiling above their bedroom, but the liquid seeped out from her corpse, and other residents complained about the odor. The investigators finally returned, opened the ceiling, and saw the stained area, and it tested positive for Harmony's DNA. But by that point, what happened to her? So after the shelter, that didn't work out. So then he stuffed her body into a maternity tote bag, which his wife took to his job at the Portland Pie Company. Don't buy Portland pies. All right. Kayla Montgomery placed the tote. See? Isn't she lovely, Mommy? Placed the tote in between their sons in the double stroller and walked it to the eatery where her husband stored it in the walk-in freezer. The couple soon moved into an apartment and they brought the tote along with them, then placing it in the freezer there. Then they found the tote bag and the freezer. I mean the cooler, the cooler. They should put her in a cooler. Then finally, they dumped her body in a shower to thaw it out, and added lime to the tote bag to help with the process. And then there's a description, which you don't want to hear. And then they tried to fit her back into the bag, but it didn't seem to work terribly well. So then they rented a U-Haul and used that to dump her body in the middle of the night, months later. And then he came back to him, finally told his wife, okay, it's done. So they've looked for that and they can't find it. But meanwhile, he's been found guilty of felony weapons charges in a separate case and is facing at least 2 decades in prison when he is sentenced. He has pleaded not guilty of the charges stemming from his daughter's murder. Harmony was reported missing by her mother nearly 2 years after police believed the girl was killed. Speechless. Yeah. And I just did this thing this afternoon on how we view children. I did a thing on the Austrian nurses' serial homicides, and how 4 nurses committed these serial homicides of elderly people, and all of them are out of prison, even though there's dozens of murders that they committed. They're out of prison, got new names and new lives. Because elderly people don't matter, and young children to a lot of people don't seem to matter terribly much either. So it's they often don't get very good sentences, and they can get away with an awful lot. It's appalling, absolutely appalling. But woof, yeah, they did. They worked a lot harder than you would think. Normally speaking, people remove a body and eliminate it very quickly. Just go to some very empty location, especially with a small child. I'm surprised they worked so hard at it, but they eventually achieved it, except for the DNA. If there hadn't been DNA found, they would have gotten away with it, in spite of carrying the child's body around for that time. Well. The poor baby didn't go through any of that. Just her body did. She was killed quickly, I guess, with the punches to her head. And that was that, but wow, just wow. It's like, it just kind of blows you away. But okay, since that was such a horrible story, but I just thought it was so incredibly bizarre. And it goes to show you how evil and crappy human beings can be. And so, but this, I want to talk about this. So is that it? That's not it, is it? Maybe it isn't. Yeah, I want to talk about this just because I want one good story after that. So I can sort of, instead of having to take a shower, I got something pleasant here. And I'm bringing this up because this is the opposite of a crime. Let me find, okay, here it is. I just think this is the sweetest story. So let me give you something sweet, because there are good people in the world. The man on the left is Kyle Adcock. The woman on the right is Amy Droulard. This is what it says. And that boy is her son. All right. Now, oh, come on. You got to be kidding me. I tell you. No, there's nothing more irritating than you are able to read it. And then when you go back to read it, now there's a block on it. And so now they say I have to keep registered to keep reading. So I can't read this whole thing, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway. So anyway, he was with that was his partner, and she had I believe it was breast cancer. And so she got worse and worse and worse. And he married her while in the hospital. And they brought the white dress and everything, and they had the ceremony. He married her before she died, and she died like I think hours later. It was quite at the end. And he's adopted her son. That boy He said that boy was the best boy ever to his mother. He was a wonderful kid, and he didn't want to leave that boy alone in the world, so he's adopted him. And it's just this guy. This guy stood by his woman, and he stood by her son, and now he's going to be that boy's father. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So there are good people in the world. So it's just that we should know that. We should, that makes me feel happy. That was my happy story. So, yeah, I like that one. Now, I have to do something refreshing. Now, I do want to do, let's see, one more thing here. This just cracks me up. So I heard this one before, and I don't know if we've talked about it on the show or not, but I just think it's so funny the way they do these things. So if you've heard the answer to this, don't answer. But oh, come on, now what? Yeah, it was reloaded. Well, reload it again so I can see it. Must we do this? Must we do this? Okay. Why doesn't the site want to reload? So annoying. Let me see if I have a picture from this one. At least I have this picture. Okay. The one riddle to determine if you're a psychopath. Okay. So I wanted to read it properly. The question and thing is how you answer this determines if you're a psychopath. And I can't pull it back up. So let me see if I can find the riddle elsewhere. And some of you probably know this, so just be quiet if you know this one. Hold on. Riddle show psychopath. Okay. Let's see. Okay. If you can solve this riddle, you're a psychopath. All right, here we go. All right. So this is I've heard this a number of times before. I don't know where, but anyway. And by the way, yes, I did get the answer immediately. It was so clear to me. It's so damned obvious. Well, there you go. I guess I'm a psychopath. And the riddle is this, if you haven't heard it. While at her own mother's funeral, a woman meets a guy she doesn't know. She thinks this guy is amazing, her dream man, and is pretty sure he could be the love of her life. However, she never asked for his name or number, and afterwards she could not find anyone who knew who he was. A few days later, the girl kills her own sister. Question, why did she do it? Why did she kill her sister? And what is your answer if you haven't heard the thing before? Anybody have an answer to that one? Why did this woman kill her sister? Who's missing? Oh, I mean the story? The story, what made me happy was this was a good man. The woman was dying, but he was such a good guy. He stayed with her through all of her illness. And then he married her, and now he's adopting the child. I just think that's a beautiful thing. Yes, yes, it's sad that she died. I mean, that's totally sad. But what a good man, and to stay with her and to adopt the child. Okay, you're stumped. Okay, no clue why she murdered the sister. She was a twin. No. She liked her sister's husbands. No. Wow, there's no psychopaths here but me. Wow. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. Oh dear. It's just me. Oh my God, I am a psychopath. I thought that was so blatantly obvious. No, really? You're all stumped. Wow, I'll be darned. She wanted to be free of what? Of her sister? No, nobody knows. Oh my goodness. She saw her sister as competition. Oh my God, I am a lone psycho. I'm a lone psychopath. She was, Sis was sleeping with the guy. Nobody knew who the guy was. Nobody had any clue who the guy was. She wanted the inheritance. No. Oh my goodness. Wow. Gee, not even you, Joe. I can't believe it. He liked the sister. They never saw the guy again. Nobody knew who the guy was. He showed up at her mother's funeral. Nobody knew who she was, and she couldn't figure it out. Then she kills her sister. Nobody. she is a psychopath and she killed her mother. No, her mother died natural causes. I heard it before and I don't remember. Okay, clearly you need help. Apparently I do. Oh my God. Da! Wanted him to show up for the sister's funeral. You nailed it. I have a sister psychopath. I'm so glad Texas Redhead. Exactly. Hey, see, I'm not alone after all. Yes, since he knew the mother, she figured if she killed the sister, he'd show up for that funeral too, and then she could date him. I mean, it was so obvious to me. Texas Redhead, was it obvious to you, or had you heard it before? So basically, yes, she sees the guy at the funeral, at her mother's funeral, and he's very handsome. She feels like it could be the love of her life, but she doesn't get his name, and he disappears, and she asks everybody who he is, and nobody knows. Then she kills her sister with the idea that if there's another funeral, the dude will show up. So, but supposedly, it took a minute to get it. Okay, a little less psychopathic than me. Oh my goodness. Wow. Interesting. This is really concerning. Oh, I might need help after all. I heard this, when I first heard this riddle, it was so obvious to me. I was like, oh, she just wants another funeral so the dude will come back. But you're not supposed to think that way unless you're a psychopath. It may just be that I've dealt with so many psychopaths in my life, in my studies. This is my story. I'm going to stand with it. So I've learned so much about psychopathic behavior. That's the way I know a psychopath would think. So it just seemed terribly obvious. That's pretty sick. Well, depends how much you like your sister and how much you really think you're going to like the guy. You know what I mean? You have to weigh these things out, Oh my goodness. That's right. She's a psychopath too. A lot of people did say they got this, and they said, well, I must be a psychopath. It's like there are people out there who get this, but I'm really surprised that there wasn't a larger group of people here who Linda says, oh my God, I'm normal. Well, you are students of criminal profiling. And as much as I talk about psychopathy here, I just figured there would be a 50-50. At least 50% of you would like, oh yeah, that's so obvious. Yeah, she killed a sister to get the next funeral. I mean, it was so obvious to me. It's just, well, if I get down to Texas, we're going to have to go out for the evening and see if one of us survives. You bring the money. Oh Lord. But I thought that, I thought it was just kind of funny that it says anyways. Okay. It says here, did you figure it out? A psychopath would know the answer is that the girl killed her sister because she hoped the mystery man would show up at her sister's funeral and she'd get to see him again. If you got it right, don't start padding up your walls just yet. No one knows where the riddle came from, so it's not like it's professionally approved method of diagnosing psychopaths. According to Psychology Today, only 1% of the population are true psychopaths. Well, I kind of think it might be higher than I think it's higher than that. However, how many people do we have here? So, with Texas Redhead and me, what percentage are we doing right here? I have to. Oh my goodness. I'm very disappointed I'm not a psychopath. I had such high hopes for myself too. I thought for sure, Joe, you'd come up with it. And although I must say, I think if Martin were here, Martin might have. I'm just going to hold that out for Martin because I think he's a little more disturbed than you, I think. If you watch this show later, Martin, yeah, I'm talking about you. He's got a similar sense of humor to me. So, oh, look at that. We're all innocent babes here except Pat and Texas Redhead. Unless some of you are just lying. Darn well the answer to that. But you're just not going to let us know because you're going to manipulate us and make us think you're really nice people. Oh, my goodness. Well, I think I mentioned this in one of my other shows before, but, I had this suspected serial killer dude, and he was going onto sites where he drowned young men and underage. And so the police and this therapist wanted me to see if I could pose and see if I could get any information. So I posed online as a 15-year-old boy who he drowned over and over again in many interesting sexual ways. Anyway, when I went to, I was sitting there with the police. This is, I forgot where it was. Where was it? It was somewhere near Minneapolis, but it wasn't Minnesota. So it was over the line. Maybe Wisconsin. I can't remember. Geez, where was it? Anyway, I was sitting there with the police, and there was an FBI guy that came in and was working with them. And then he read the transcripts of what the boy was saying and what this guy was saying. And he looks at me and goes, "You were the 15-year-old boy?" And he's looking at this going, because it was some pretty sexual stuff. And I tried, and it's funny because I really don't know how boys that age think so much, but I just try to play the part as I thought one might if they were slightly disturbed themselves and needy. Apparently it worked because the guy was totally into me. And so it was fascinating. Yeah, so maybe if I can think like a psychopath, it's because I might be one, as some of my haters claim. Come on. Oh, well. That's scary even on a phone. This was all by on a website that we contacted through. So, but he was a creepy dude. And the hardest part was that he found out who I was. And so he liked to sue everybody. So he threatened me with lawsuits and all kinds of things. A nasty piece of work. Yeah. He claimed he wanted to be the next Jeffrey Dahmer. So nice fellow. That was a psychopath. Definitely a psychopath. So it was, woof. Let's see if anything else here tonight this is just a little interesting thing. Might be a short night here. I'm going to work on the show for Saturday, but I just want to mention her. This is someone many people don't like very much. This is, where'd you go? Hold on. Oh, this one. This is Alexee Trevizo. She's the one that murdered a newborn baby. More than 12,000 signed a petition to kick out Alexee Trevizo from university after her bail was changed so she can go to classes despite being accused of murdering her newborn baby. So she gets to attend college. She was 19 when she gave birth to her son in a bathroom of the General Hospital and then put his body in a trash can. The teenager claims the baby boy wasn't crying when she gave birth and was stillborn, but that is not true. She strangled the baby. So she was going to New Mexico State University, and people do not want her in their classroom. They don't want to be in there with a murderer. Why does she have bail? Why is she going to college? Well, I guess because she hasn't been found guilty yet. I think she also went to her, I think she went to her prom too, after she killed the baby, which is just so sweet. Any rate, the petition repeatedly references that Trevizo is pursuing a career in. Guess what? They say she's trying to get what she wants to study. What does she want to become? What do you think she wants to become? What do you think? What would be her? There's supposedly no evidence. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, exactly. They say nurse or social worker, and they say there's no evidence to support that, but apparently that's what they're saying. She's going after. Previously, another judge. Let's see. The petition came out days after. A judge ruled she would be allowed to go to her college classes in person. Previously, another judge had ruled, using a domestic violence framework, that she should not be allowed to see her boyfriend and alleged father of her child. He also goes to that college now. So then they ruled, but the other judge, Jane Gray, expressed her shock at the ruling and said there were no domestic abuse allegations and ruled that she should be able to see her boyfriend and attend the same university because she's not yet proven to be a murderer. All right, so yes, she's a lovely girl. Let's see what else. Say anything else about her here. Our lawyer is saying she didn't strangle the baby. And let's see. Yeah. And apparently nobody knew she was pregnant. That's pretty hard to believe, because you can see she looks pregnant in her cheerleading clothes. So the fact her mother says she didn't know she was pregnant, her boyfriend didn't know she was pregnant, get out of here. And they're lying to the medical staff. And then she goes in, throws the baby in a trash can while she, right there at the hospital. And that's supposed to be kind of okay, I guess. Now they're, so now the lawyer's going to play all these games that the staff gave her some medication they shouldn't have given her. And let's see, she gave her a muscle relaxer, which is interesting. She had said she had severe back pain, so they gave her some morphine because she said she wasn't pregnant, right? So she was lying, and therefore, they did blood tests, but didn't find out she was pregnant till later. I'm not going to say that the staff at the hospital did anything right either, so that's another whole wicket there. I will never understand how people don't notice pregnancy. Her mom and boyfriend didn't know. Forever, I've never understood, and people swear up and down this can be true, that they're 9 months pregnant and never had a clue. As a woman who's been pregnant, I don't understand that at all. I don't understand. First of all, the issue of the period thing. Well, generally speaking of periods, but there are some people who can have periods during a pregnancy. Usually it's because of something like a tubal pregnancy, and then that's because the baby's in the wrong place and is going to die or has died. But let's say you did have that. Still, your stomach gets bigger and bigger, and you think you're just getting fat, but at some point the baby moves, and the baby, unless that baby doesn't move at all, which is hard to believe, and your stomach, it's not I'm fat right now. And my stomach squishes, But if you have a baby in there, that thing's like a rock, man. So I don't understand how you don't notice your stomach's like a rock, that you don't feel the baby moving, that you had no symptoms whatsoever. It's especially some people who've had a baby before and they say they didn't know they were pregnant the second time. I say, but I don't know. It has to be some pretty freaky thing. And then the husband wouldn't know either. The boyfriend doesn't know. It's like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people in denial. That's what I think. A lot of people in denial. Okay, I'm going to do one more thing. What was it? Maybe I won't do one more thing. Okay, this Saturday coming up, if I remember to send out the actual links, like I didn't do until today, I'm going to be doing the case of Richard Glossop. Fascinating. Richard Glossop case. Richard Glossop is almost the face of Innocence Project right now. Huge everywhere, all over the internet. And I actually have not heard of this case before. So somebody said, can you look at it? Do you think he's innocent? Do you not think he's innocent? And Richard Glossop was convicted and received the death penalty on death row for hiring his friend to commit a homicide. The friend committed the homicide and then said, he made me do it. He hired me. And people are like, that is just nonsense. The guy never hired the guy. The guy was just a creep who killed somebody. And then he's getting the blame and he never committed the crime. And what the heck? Why is he on death row? He didn't kill anybody. And most people don't seem to not believe that he also told his friend to kill this person. So, and that he's just this, innocent bystander, essentially. So I've been looking into that case, and I will Glossop, Glossip. And also you can find, I'm going to send over the information, but you can get a head start. There is also I think it's on, okay, I got to figure out where it went to. There is a documentary. Let me find it so you can go start early on it if you want to watch the documentary. Richard Glossop doc. Called Killing Richard Glossop. All right. And it is available on, it's 3-part series, I believe. Are there more episodes? Oh man, it's a 4-part series. It's on Discovery. Discovery Plus. Let me see. I don't know if it's on Amazon Prime as well. Roku is supposedly free over there. I have so many of these channels because I have to have them. And sometimes what happens is you go to watch something and you can't find it on your channel. I'm watching it and, okay, I'm pulling it up to see if I have it correct here. I just started watching it on the first, hello? What's going on here? It's very slow. All right, Discovery Channel Plus, Discovery Plus. Let's see. Yes, Killing Richard Glossop is on Discovery Plus. If you don't have that, you're going to have to just hunt around Prime Video. It's obviously not on Netflix. Roku has it. If you're not in the United States, and it's always more difficult because you can't necessarily access it. I will say this, it's a huge case as far as it's probably I really think he's like the face of the Innocence Project right now. I think it's, at least I think the Innocence Project has it. But it's all over YouTube. It's like you can find out information about this case, a ton of it. Okay. And I'm reading a lot of things. I'm reading a lot of the transcripts from the appeals and so on and so forth, along with the documentary to see what I think. And so it's going to be interesting. I find it quite a fascinating case. So that's the one I'm going to do on Saturday. And so I hope you'll be there. And I thank you for being here, and the last minute link send over. And again, if you're new to the channel, see, we have such fun in the chat room. And you could have taken that riddle. Well, at home, we'll never find out if you're a psychopath. But if you were in the chat room, we might have found out that you can join Texas Redhead and me in our psychopathy. So do join Patreon below. It just supports an educational channel. I will mention this before I go. I just saw there's a new show coming out called, what's the name of it? Hold on a second. It's being put out by, it's on Stephen Avery, and apparently Ken Mange just got an early copy to watch, and it is new film. Okay, it is called Convicting a Murderer. The first one's called Making a Murderer, which is the famous one, which pushes that Stephen Avery didn't kill Teresa Halbach and burn her up in his backyard, that he's this great guy. Go check out my video on it. If you've never checked it out, check that one out. The new one coming out is going to be called Convicting a Murderer. It's going to be a TV miniseries, and I'm looking forward to it because Stephen, as Ken Mange says, and as I say, we both say this together, dang, is that guy guilty. My God almighty, that guy is so guilty. I mean, of all the cases, the guy is so guilty. And the conspiracy theories and the claims that he's innocent and all this stuff is so outrageous, but people have been falling for it. But anyway, this is going to be put out. It's the Daily Wire is pulling it out with Candace Owens, and a lot of people, and Maines points this out, that if you, it's turned into a very political thing. So if you believe Stephen Avery is guilty, you're Republican. If you think he's not guilty, you're Democrat. It's so stupid because it's about evidence. And Ken Maines says, I don't give a crap what anybody's political viewpoint is, and I don't think you need to know my political viewpoint. We're looking at the evidence. But it seems to be this thing. So Convicting a Murderer was kind of put out by the defense team. And now this is being put out, and the Daily Wire and Candace Owens are highly conservative political. Daily Wire is a political channel, and Candace Owens is a highly political conservative person who also has, thinks she has a show of her own. But I'm curious, I will be curious to see whether they presented the case the way I would have liked to have seen it presented, not making a murderer, because I thought that was one of the most manipulative pieces of garbage I ever saw. Well done. but manipulative as heck, and too many people bought it, and they're still fighting to free Stephen Avery. And I just feel like, oh my Lord, the guy's a serial killer, man. You don't want to let that guy out. He was wrongly convicted of another crime that looked like he did it, and it was just it was a freak thing. But he did do the one he was convicted of, the second one. And nobody framed him. And so I'm curious to see how this convicting a murderer, will they focus on evidence, or are we going to have some manipulative thing on the other side, which is, I don't like it on either side. I like to look at the evidence and say, hey, this is what the evidence shows. No, I got no skin in the game. I don't have any lover. Well, in my opinion, Avery's a serial killer, so I don't like him. As I don't like Dennis Rader. But whether a person's guilty or innocent is not a concern to me, unless it were a relative of mine. I want the right person to be convicted, and I don't want the wrong person to be convicted. And my politics haven't got a thing to do with it. And so, but this is one of those cases where Ken Maines has stopped all the comments on his channel. And he used to say that comments don't bother me, but apparently they bothered him enough to close down comments, because he did something on Stephen Avery, and all hell broke loose, and he got tons of nasty comments, and he was like, oh my God, he couldn't believe the kind of attacks these commenters had on him, because he had the audacity to think that Stephen Avery was guilty. And I have done my show on Stephen Avery, and I can tell you it was rough. The comments coming in, if you think he's guilty. I've had that on a few other cases as well. The British case, Luke Mitchell. I've received barrage of stuff on the Luke Mitchell case. There's these certain cases, if you take a stand on a side of somebody's guilty, when you got tons of people who believe in their innocence, you can go from being the best profile that ever existed to being a piece of garbage. And I've had people turn just like that. So I'm curious to see how the convicting a murderer is going to come out in comparison to the making a murderer. I hope they make the case properly. That's all I do. I hope I hope they take the politics out of it and make sure it's presented based on evidence. We'll see what happens. It's coming out. When is it going to come out? Where is it? What is that? The trailer is out. Okay. I don't know what's coming out. Premiere date. Okay, wait a minute. September 8th. Okay, so next week. It will be out next week. So I'll probably do a show on that, because I'll have to. So, did you say that? Oh my goodness. Yeah. There's nothing wrong, I say, with being. You can have the right to believe somebody's guilty, and you have the right to believe somebody's innocent, regardless. And sometimes people will have differences of opinion. We will. There's no way around it. But at least if you're going to believe somebody's innocent, let's look for evidence of them being innocent, and let's look for evidence if you think they're guilty of them being guilty. Look at evidence. That's what I stick for. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I'm going to go have myself a little dinner. I'm going to go start watching this show. What was it called again? I forgot what the name of that show was. The one I just told you to watch. Killing? Was it Killing? Killing Him? I think that was the name of it. So I'm going to go watch that. So I've got this today and tomorrow to get that together, and I will probably do a 3:00 show on Saturday. So I hope you'll be there, and see you all next time. And if you weren't a psychopath this time, I'll see if I can come up with something to help you out. So you can be a psychopath in the future, just like me. Bye.